and we're all down at the bottom, and we can see her reaching for like the last hold, okay? That she's going to put her left hand on. And as soon as she gets her left hand on this hold, she's going to be able to reach the top. There's a bell at the top of each of the trees. And we can tell if she get her left hand on this hold, she's good to go. And we see her hand shaking so violently, reaching for this last hold. It was so inspiring.
Hey there, and welcome to the Digital Nomad Family Podcast. This is the place where families who have or want to have a nomadic lifestyle come together to talk about the highs and lows that this life brings. We celebrate the joys and support each other in the hard. So, if you are a digital nomad family, or will be in the future, this is the place for you. We're glad you're here.
Hey guys, Marissa here. I hope you are all doing well. I am absolutely thrilled to be talking to you guys today about what we're talking about, and that is climbing trees. And you might be thinking, that's not exciting whatsoever, Marissa. You have fully gone round the bend. But hear me out. These trees are not just any trees. It's not just climbing a tree like you did when you were a little kid. This is having to wear a harness. You're getting repelled. It is challenging. And you are in the cloud forest in Monteverde in Costa Rica. And it is phenomenal. So that is what we are going to talk about today. And I honestly believe if you have time and if you have the resources to do this adventure, I cannot recommend it enough. And we'll get into more of that here in a little bit. But before we get into the real meat of today's episode, I want to say a big shout out to everyone who has started subscribing to the podcast. That helps us more than you can know. And if you haven't hit the plus button or the follow button, however it appears on whatever platform you're listening to, it helps us grow so much with every single person that does that. And so if you haven't, please take a minute. I mean, it takes 2 seconds to just hit subscribe. Please go ahead and do that. It really does help all the algorithms know, hey, this is content that people are listening to. People value this. And so because of that, they show it to other people. So I'm not asking for my ego. I'm asking for the algorithms. So if you could please go ahead and do that, I would really appreciate it. Also, I haven't talked about our Instagram in a while here, so I'm going to do that. If you don't follow us on Instagram, you are more than welcome to go over there. I'll leave a link in the description on this episode. I haven't done that in a while, but our Instagram is pretty fun. We vary between sharing products that we like, talking about real life tips, showing pictures of things we're doing. So it really is a hodgepodge over there, and we have a good time with it. Also, Ryan, our 11-year-old, has started doing a weekly joke, which has been the highlight of my week, watching him do this. But also we actually have people who are reaching out to us saying, we love Ryan's Monday joke. We look forward to it every Monday. And we do it on Monday to just try to help any of those Monday blues that you might be having. Hopefully his joke will help with that a little bit. So if you're not following us on Instagram, go ahead, jump on over and follow us. Over there, we're called Family of Dashes. One day I really need to do a more of a explanation as to that name, but for now, we're just going to leave it at that. And so that's Instagram. And again, thank you for everyone who is subscribed to the podcast. And if you're not, would really love for you to do that for us. So, okay, with all of that being said, let's talk about climbing trees. So what is it? Where did we go? All the things. right? So we went to a place called Treetopia Park. And this was actually a place we were hosted. So I just want to be super transparent about that. But we have free will to say whatever we want to. There's no pressure. So I don't want you to hear what I'm saying. Like, no one is monitoring this, okay? Like, nobody. Like, I can be as honest as I want. I could say it was a miserable experience and you shouldn't go there, and that's if that was the truth and that's what it is. That was not the truth whatsoever. We had an amazing time. So it's called Treetopia Park. And it's funny because while we were there, they were actually in the middle of their name change. And so they were connected with another park, and it was a 2-location park. They had this location and then another location about maybe like 45 minutes away. And both of them had similar things, but not exactly the same. So I'm not sure what happened there. I know nothing. I just know that when we were there, they were rebranding. And everyone was very mum's the word on what the new name was going to be. It was kind of cute. But like, even our guide, Jason, was like, we don't know anything. We just know on Tuesday, and we were there on a Sunday. And then he said, on Tuesday, they're having this big reveal, and there's new signage, and there's new everything. And we don't know what it is. And so when we were there, all of the signs were down. So that was kind of a little like confusing. We actually had a driver, not connected with this whatsoever. Like, we have a friend here in San Jose that we have been connected with, that we ask him to drive us to these adventures. And so thankfully he knew where it had been called Sky Adventures. And he knew where Sky Adventures was. And we're like, okay. So as we're driving there, like, there's one sign that has the name Sky Adventures, right? And then as we're getting closer and closer, all the signs are down, like all the big billboards that you can tell they should have things are naked. And so we're like, what is going on? This is so weird. Maybe they're like, we thought they were maybe coming up with different promotional pieces, which apparently they are. They just needed a new name. And so as we're there, everyone's like, oh, we don't know what the new name's going to be. And now we know it is Treetopia Park, which is a very accurate name. This place was gorgeous. Even just walking from one tree to the next to do the climbing was fantastic. So when we got there, we thought we were going to climb 4 trees. We actually ended up climbing 5 trees. And our guide, Jason, so from now on, I'm just going to say Jason. That's who led us around. He kept us safe. He was really encouraging to the kids. He was a fantastic guide. But Jason was saying they are in the midst of adding even more trees. So hopefully by the time you guys who are listening get there and can do it, they'll have anywhere up to 7 trees. Now, let me just say, I think that's a lot. By the time we were done with 5, our bodies were done. We were exhausted. It was, if you are like in very good physical shape, and if you're a climber, if you're like, especially a rock climber, you're going to be fine. You're good. If you are not a rock climber, which like Riley and I climbed in the past, but I mean, guys, I haven't touched any climbing equipment in like 8 months. So, I mean, I can't say I'm a climber anymore. And so if you have like tight hips, it's going to be a lot of work. So 7 trees, I do think would be a lot of work for your body. But 5 was a fantastic amount for us. So they had 5 trees that we were able to climb. This location, Treetopia, they do have other stuff than just tree climbing. They do have the zip lines. They do have a cable car that you can ride up. You can see the gorgeous park. And if there's any clouds, you get to see because it's in the cloud forest. And you get to see the wonderful clouds, and it's absolutely amazing. And then they also have several hanging bridges that you can go on, like a hanging bridges tour, and you're walking through the park, and it's It's absolutely gorgeous. The only thing we did with Treetopia is the tree climbing. And so I'll give some thoughts at the end as to just like our overall thoughts about it. But the reason we were so drawn to the tree climbing is it's not that we didn't want to go ziplining. If you know anything about Costa Rica, this is where you zipline. In Costa Rica, you zipline. It's just what you do. I don't know if we're going to zipline while we're here. It's not that I don't want to. It's not that I'm nervous. It has nothing to do with that. And everything to do with, I love challenging our family to do hard things. And as soon as I saw this tree climbing thing, I thought, this is physically harder than ziplining, because with ziplining, you might be a little nervous, but it's not a physically hard thing to do. This very much, I could just tell from the images, this was going to be hard, like physically hard for our bodies. Also, there is something different about you climbing a tree and seeing how high you are because of work you've done versus we're going to walk on these platforms and we didn't necessarily climb the tree. We are high, but we didn't climb the tree to get this high, and everyone else is standing down on the ground and you can tell that you're at a different height than everyone. It's a very different experience. And I absolutely love doing things that our kids are going to look back on and say, I did that, and I'm proud of what I did. And I knew that this would be that experience, and it totally was. It was fantastic. So they're, as I said, they're located in Monteverde. So if you are in Costa Rica, it's going to take you about 4 hours to get to Monteverde from San Jose. And it's a beautiful, beautiful place. And Treetopia will actually pick you up at your hotel if you don't want to drive from your hotel to the park. So that is something that they can do for you. Our driver picked us up at our hotel and then drove us over to Treetopia. They do have a parking lot you can park. It was super safe. It's not a big deal at all to drive there. The road to get from like your hotel in Monteverde to Treetopia, the road is just, it's a fine road. Like, I don't want you to think that like, it's not dangerous or anything, but wow, the potholes. Oh my gosh. So if you are driving, just know whatever the GPS says, it's going to take you longer. Again, not because it's dangerous or anything. You just have to go slow because there's just so many potholes. And we were just blown away. And our driver, Ronnie, was like, you would think that all of these companies, because so many companies are located on this road. Like, it's just one road. And I think we passed probably 4 different companies. And they were all canopy tours and zip line. I mean, like I said, there's just so many options if you want to do the zip lining, which is great. But they're all like located on this one road. And Ronnie's like, I don't understand why they don't band together to fix this road. And I was like, I don't know. Maybe they think it helps with the experience of like, oh, we're really going into the forest or something. But I mean, it's going to take you longer if you're driving than you think, just because you got to go slow or else you're going to pop a tire and you don't want to do that. So just a heads up for that. So they will pick you up. Treetopia will pick you up at your hotel. You need to arrange that with them, but they will do that. And so we got there and we got all signed in and everything. And they do the safety briefing. You're in a helmet and you're in your harness. I will say just some tips for this. Take bug spray, but put it on at your car, okay? So I asked Jason when we were out in the forest, when we were out in the woods around the trees, if I could put bug spray on, and he said we don't like people putting bug spray on with the equipment on because it can kind of like tack it up and make it sticky, and then like that's not good, and then it gets dirty, and which I understand, like they want to keep their stuff nice. So we didn't have too many bugs, but if you want to just make sure that you're not getting bit by any bugs, put bug spray on at your car because they don't want you putting it on once you're out there. So bug spray up, and then you can take a backpack with you because at each tree, you're just kind of hanging out at each location for a while the one person at a time climbs the tree. And so you do have time so you can take a backpack and set it down there and it's fine. Now, I don't know about taking a backpack if you're ziplining. I don't see how that would work, but we are very specifically talking the tree climbing. So don't take what I am talking about and apply it to all the activities that happen at Treetopia. We're specifically talking about just the tree climbing. So I did have a backpack and I had water in there, and something I didn't have that I should have had is snacks, because the amount of energy you exert climbing these trees is high. They are anywhere from 10 meters to about 45, almost 50 meters. And so, and you're doing 5 of them. And I'm not young. And so it would have been nice to have some snacks. And that would have been fine to just have in the backpack, like a granola bar or just some, I don't know, little cookies or something, to just, while you're waiting for the next person to go, you can just eat a granola bar or something. And that would be totally acceptable to do as well. So that's a tip. Take water, for sure take water, because you're just going to get thirsty. Because I mean, it's a lot of work you're doing with your body. Thankfully, it was not super hot when we were there. So we were there in the month of September, and the weather was amazing. In the afternoon, it did rain. And Jason did say, when it rains, this is a very hard activity to do, because they do have handholds on the tree. If you go over to our Instagram, you will see pictures of this. And you can see the handholds on the trees. So they do have handholds that they have attached in a very safe way for the tree, so that's how you climb up. And he says they get very slippery. So thankfully we didn't have that. So I would recommend trying to go in the morning if you could instead of the afternoon, just because from what I can tell of the weather in Monteverde, it is more likely to rain in the afternoon. Now, that is not to say it won't rain in the morning, okay? Like, don't be like, oh, Marissa said it's not going to rain. No, that's not what I'm saying. I just think there's a higher probability of rain in the afternoon. So the earlier you can get your tickets, I would say the less chance of a rain there is. I hope that makes sense. So that is another little tip. Another thing, wear closed-toed shoes. I wore my Tevas, and it was fine. They didn't say anything about it, and everyone was fine with it, and I didn't get hurt or anything. But I do think it would have been better if I would have worn tennis shoes, because stuff can get like underneath your foot, and when you're climbing, that's obnoxious. So I just think wearing tennis shoes is better. So I did do it in Tevas, so there's that. But my tip would be don't, okay? And then my last little tip would be we didn't find out about this until we were exiting the park, but they had helmets. So you have to wear a helmet because you have to stay safe, but they had helmets with GoPros attached to them. And then, so you rent, from what I can remember, I heard Eric talking to them about it. I didn't talk to them about it because I was like, well, what's the point? It's already over. We didn't get a chance to, they didn't do a good job of telling us that before we went. I think it's because, and I don't really have like a reason for saying this. I kind of just get the impression that the tree climbing activity is not the one that people put a lot of thought into, because it's not the zip lining, it's not the hanging bridges, it's not the quote unquote normal thing that you do when you're in Monteverde. And so I do think they kind of didn't maybe emphasize certain things. It's almost like an afterthought activity, which is so sad because I think it is the star of the show, personally. I really, really do. And so when we were going to leave, we saw that they had these helmets with GoPros attached. And so the helmet that we had, and so we had the helmet and we had our harness that you got attached to the tree. We didn't have to, like, that rental was included in our ticket cost. Now, again, we were hosted, but if you were to go, that helmet and that harness is already included. You don't have to, there's no equipment rental. That's included in your ticket. And I do believe there is a charge to do, a little charge. I don't think it was significant, but I think they charged you to rent this helmet, but then also you would have to buy the footage. So like they have an SD card and everything like that you would use. And then I think they probably just email you the footage. I'm not 100% sure. I really should have asked about that before I started recording this episode, but I didn't. So we're just going to go on this. If you go to Treetopia, ask them about renting a helmet with a GoPro attached to it, okay? It would have been really cool, because then we could have seen views of being high up in the trees, and that would have been cool. But again, I don't think that's something that they like really pushed because we weren't doing the big ticket items. So those are kind of like my little tips. So how it happened is we got to the park, we got all signed in, and we were a little too early, so we just kind of hung out, waited. The kids, there is a gift shop. The kids looked at the gift shop. We're not big gift shop people, but we actually allowed our kids to all get something, not till after, but we did allow the kids to get something. And there is a restaurant on site as well. So we could have grabbed a little bit of something to eat, but we didn't. We just kind of hung out and looked around and chit-chatted. And so about 15 minutes before our time, we were able to go and start getting our harnesses on and our helmets on. And they did an amazing job making sure the harnesses and the helmets for all 6 of us fit very well. And if you've seen pictures of our family, you know we are extremely differently shaped bodies. We have very tall people in our family. We have very short people in our family. We have thin people in our family. We have not thin people in our family. So we really just run the gamut of body shapes, but every single one of us felt very comfortable in what we were doing. If you have someone who is over 250 pounds, I would shoot an email and just ask, hey, like, is there any limitations? Because that was the number that they said for one of the things that we did. When people start to get around the 250 pound mark, things can adjust a little bit. Now, I'm not sure if that's for the zip line or anything, but so don't hold me to that for the zip line. But that was one number that they talked about as kind of like a threshold for one of the activities that they have there. But I was trying to find this activity on their website and I don't have it. So they might have gotten rid of it ever since the name, like the company change. And what it was is they called it a free fall. And it was not on our ticket. It was not, I don't even remember seeing this on the website. But what it was a 6-meter free fall. And then you were attached to an auto belay, but it was a 2 times the strength auto belay than just the typical auto belay that you use. Like if you're rock climbing or at the trees, they had auto belays. And so this activity was you climbed really, 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 really high up. And then you jumped. They attached you to a chest harness then, and then they attached you to this double power auto belay. And then you jumped backwards. It's like you were standing with your back to the opening of this big tower thing, and you jumped backwards off of the tower, and then you free fall. I don't know how you would say that, guys. Words, right? It's a good thing I don't just talk on a audio show. And so you just fall for 6 meters. Then that is when the 2 timed strength, auto belay is engaged, and then you just kind of slowly come down the rest of the way. 3 of us did that. 3 of us did not. But for that, it was a 250 pound limit. And so, but like I said, I couldn't find anything. That's kind of like maybe I shouldn't have even talked about it. I don't know, but we did it. Well, 3 of us did it. And, but I don't see, I was looking on their website for it, and I see nothing on their website about it. So if you go there, it might be gone. They might not offer it with this new company anymore. That might have not made the cut. I have no idea. So yeah, but anyways, we got there, we did the safety, things. We got all safety-fied up with our harnesses. And then we walked over to the first tree, and our guide Jason explained to the kids how they were going to be hooked up to each tree. Each tree had its own unique set of challenges. So some of the trees were similar in height that we would climb up to, but that doesn't mean that they were all the same level of challenge. And the first tree we did was the shortest tree, but there were definitely some challenging moments because it's your first one and you're still trying to get used to this thing, and it is intimidating, guys. Like, there was definitely some intimidation factor to it. And so the first one, you're kind of getting used to it. And then when you get up to the top, you just have to let go because you're on an auto belay, and it just slowly brings you down. But every single kid was like, it is very, and even Riley, who is super used to auto belays because she would climb in the United States. We would go climbing all the time, her and I. And the gym we went to I would belay her, but some of her favorite routes were auto belays. And so even Riley, who is super used to auto belay, it's that intimidation of, now I just have to let go of this tree where I am safe, right? And I'm just going to float down. And so that's the first one. And then the next several they just progressively get taller as far as how high you climb. And then it gets to the last one. And Jason was telling us that he has had groups where no one has reached the top of the last tree. He said, not only is your body just tired because you've climbed so many trees up to this point, so your arms are just, Stoyanka, she would climb, and she uses her arms. She just overuses her arms because she's not a huge rock climber. And so her arms would get so pumped, which means like the muscles are already just very, very full of the lactic acid, and your arms are just super tired already. And so like she would be on a tree, and like she would get down, and maybe she had been up there for 6 minutes, and she would get down and her arms would just be so pumped. And so she would have to do some stretches between each tree. And so that's another, I guess, little tip, I should say. Learn some quick stretches that you can do, like climbing stretches of how to stretch out your arms and your legs. And just a few things you can do to help your kids between each tree so that they're not overly tired and overly sore, because you are going to want to stretch it out, because you will be, if you don't stretch after this, you're getting so much lactic acid into your muscles, and you will just be sore if you don't stretch that out. So make sure you do some stretching after you do this activity for sure. Or the next day, you are just going to feel it even more than you probably already will. And so we get to the last tree, and Riley goes last. And I had, when I was on this tree, I'll kind of take it back here for a second before I tell Riley's story. I had got to not super high on this tree, not high at all. And I reached a point where the back of my legs, like up near my glutes, they got so tight And I was just hurting so badly that it's like I let go of the tree, like, but it wasn't even like a thought of, oh, I'm just going to be done and let go. Like I just instinctually let go of this tree because that's how much pain I was in. And I don't want to like talk you guys out of this. I'm not like I should have prepared for this better. I just kind of like woke up and I was like, oh, okay, we're going to do this, and pushed myself way, way, way too hard. And so I let go of this tree and I just fall down. Like, I don't fall. I glide down and I just lay, and they have mats. Like if you've ever seen like big, thick outdoor mats that you take when you're like bouldering, in a place that you can like fall on safely. That's what they had, just big, huge safety mat type things right under the tree where the belay brings you down to. And I just laid there, and Jason came over and he's like, oh, you did so good. That's a hard tree. And he's like, are you ready to get up? And I'm like, no, I can't. Like, I cannot move my legs. And so Eric comes over and I just look at him and like, he spins me around, and I just like whisper to him, I can't move. And I think at that point, Eric was like realizing, oh, like, no, she actually is suffering right now. And so I laid there for probably like 45 seconds. I just laid on this mat, which I know that doesn't sound long, but when you're doing it, it's a very long time. And so I just laid there, and finally I could stand up and walk around and everything. But oh man, guys, it was a hard tree. Not only is it super tall, it's almost 60 meters. So not only is it super tall, but I think it's 60. I should have checked. See, I should check these things. It might not be 60 meters. It's a tall tree. I read something that it was 60 meters, but then when we got there, Jason said it was a different height. And so I'm trying to look on their website really quick while I'm talking to you guys and make it sound like I'm just vamping for time, but I don't know. I wish I could know exactly how tall it was. Maybe it was 60 feet. That sounds more accurate. That sounds a lot more accurate, doesn't it? We're going to go with 60 feet. Is that what it was? So, anyways, this thing is tall. And so Riley goes last, and we are just cheering her on. And it gets to the point she has maybe 2 more holds, and she has reached the top of this monster. And we're all down at the bottom, and we can see her reaching for like the last hold, okay? That she's going to put her left hand on. And as soon as she gets her left hand on this hold, she's going to be able to reach the top. There's a bell at the top of each of the trees, and we can tell if she could get her left hand on this hold, she's good to go. And we see her hand shaking so violently, reaching for this last hold. It was so inspiring. And she grabs hold of it, and we just start screaming, yes, yes, yes. As she pulls herself up, and she rings the bell. And she is the only one of the 6 of us to ring the bell. And we have video of it, and we just lose it. And it was so awesome to just watch her. And she comes down, and she's so proud of herself. But like also the video of hearing everyone cheer for her and hearing how proud her siblings are of her, because you guys know how kids can be. There can be this weird moment of jealousy, like I wish I would have done it type thing when someone else does something successful. And in that video, it's like there's no jealousy of anybody. It's just pride. And everyone is just so excited for her. And it was so cool. It was such a cool family moment when Riley rang that bell. It was awesome. So that was our last tree with them. So overall, my impressions of Treetopia Park and if you should go and what you should do are, yes, you should go, and yes, you should do the tree climbing. I looked at their zip lines and that kind of stuff. I think if you want to do that, that's totally fine. I do think that there are other parks maybe with more zip lines than them, but there is something to be said about doing everything at one place and not having to go from this place to this place to this place, and that's kind of nice. But that tree climbing is totally worth it. And I always struggle like talking about why we do stuff over other things, because I just think it's this is what it is to be a family, right? What my family does is going to be different from what your family does, and why, and all these things. And so for us, doing the tree climbing was such a challenge, and we knew it was going to be a challenge, and we enjoy doing things that are a challenge. That's why we did it. We didn't do it because we wanted to get good views of treetops or anything like that. We did it because we wanted the kids to see that each of them is at a different place. Not every kid got to the top of every tree. Some kid, Riley did. Riley got to the top of every single tree. But she has that now, and she can use that as encouragement in her life. And her siblings can... Riley is our artist. I think we've talked about this in the past. Riley is not the athletic one. And so the fact that it was Riley that got to the top of all the trees, I think that gives the other three a little bit more respect for her when it comes to athletic ability. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing for them to see, hey, just because she doesn't get out there on the soccer field, just because she doesn't play basketball, does not mean that she can't do physical things. It doesn't mean she's weak. It just means her strength is different, and the way she chooses to show it is different. Also, it was mental. There were many times where a kid would be halfway up the tree and they would go, I just looked down and I got so many butterflies in my stomach and I'm scared. And even after on tree 4, this was happening, because every single time you had to go, okay, this is a new tree, this is a new experience. Just because I did that one, well, now I have to do this one. And there is something mental about switching. Like if you would just do the same tree over and over and over again, you would get used to it. And I do think that those butterflies would go away, and it would get to the point that you don't have any type of fear associated whatsoever to it. But since it was a brand new tree, that was for sure there. And so that's what we wanted. We wanted a physical challenge, but also something that was maybe going to push them to challenge themselves mentally and to maybe overcome some fears. And that's exactly what this did. So I am so excited that we did this. I will say, I do think this is an activity that you need to, if you have little kids, you're not going to do this. I don't see how anyone, let's see, Stoyanka is 5'11", or 4'11", sorry, not 5'11", 4'11". She's almost 5 feet. And Ryan is a titch taller than her. Ryan is almost 5. He's a little closer to 5 than she is. But he has longer arms because he's not done growing, and Stoyanka is done growing, and she doesn't have the longest arms and legs. And there were definitely some things that were just harder for her to do because of her height. So if you have people, I would say anywhere, if they're not to 4'10", this is going to be extremely challenging for them, because they're just not going to have the wingspan or the height to be able to do what some of these holds. Like, if you go to our Instagram, you'll see the pictures of how they have like these holds wrapped around the trees, and they don't want you really climbing on, like they want you holding the actual holds, not the rope, not like the cinch around the tree. And so to get just like to physically be able to get from one to the next, you do have to be a certain height. There is no age restriction that I have found on their website, but when I think about my kids, I don't realistically see anyone. I would say 7 or 8 needs to be the minimum, right? Like, I don't realistically see how a 6-year-old, I think that they would, depending on their personality, if they're the kind of 6-year-old that they're just going to get up there and they're going to do their best and it's not going to frustrate them whatsoever, then go for it. But if if they're going to get frustrated just because they can't physically do it, and it's not because they're not strong enough or because they can't overcome the fear to get to the top, but they physically can't reach the various holds, and that could be really frustrating, and you've paid for it. So like, that's annoying, right? And so I would say for sure a height minimum, I think, is the most important thing when we're talking about this kind of activity, because you need to have that wingspan, okay? Like I said, Stoyanka is 4'11", and I don't see much shorter than that. I would say if you go 2 inches shorter than her, yeah, maybe 4'9", I guess you could maybe make it work. But I mean, that last tree, there were just some holds that Stoyanka, I mean, she was stretching hardcore just to get from one to the next. And you're already so tired by that 5th tree that just added to the challenge. And that's not Stoyanka's fault. It's not Stoyanka's fault that she's just under 5 foot. So I would say don't go much shorter than that. So if you're not to that height level yet with the majority of your people, I would say hold off on this. That is something I didn't think about when we booked this activity. Eric and I did have the conversation of, can him and I physically do it? And just, being overweight, not being in the best health, that kind of stuff. And you do need to consider that. But I didn't even think about the height of Stoyanka. And that became a challenge on a couple of the trees for her. So keep that in mind. And another thing I would say to keep in mind is if you just want to go and have a good time and you don't want to have any type of, I don't know, if this isn't what you want, then don't do this. If you don't want to have to wait for one person to do it and then encourage them and then see how far they go, and then they come down and then the next person does it. Like if you're here with like a big group of people, this could take a while. For our party of 6, and Eric didn't climb. He climbed the first tree a little bit, but then he didn't climb any other trees. And so there were 5 of us climbing. And so for 5 of us climbing 5 trees, we were there. We had budgeted about an hour and a half, and it took us a little over 2 hours. So it took us even longer than I thought it was going to take us. So if there's more than 6 of you, you're going to be there for over 2 hours, well over 2 hours, just because you have to get one person hooked in and then they do it and then they come down and then the next person hooked in. So it does take a while. So if you don't have that type of group dynamics, then this is not the activity for you. So just keep that in mind as well. And so I would say if you have older kids who are taller, especially if they're 5 foot and above, then you're golden, you're fine. But if you have older kids who you want to see challenge themselves, maybe they're a little nervous to do a physical activity like this a little bit, then definitely look into it. I can't encourage it enough. They encouraged each other so much, and now it's only been a couple weeks, but they're already looking back on it and going, wow, we did that. That was so cool. I was so nervous. Every single tree, I was so nervous, but I still did it. I still pushed myself to go as high as I could to get to the top, to go 3 more holds. And that's the great thing. There were many times they would go, okay, I'm down, I'm done, I'm coming down. And we would say, why are you done? Right? Like we wouldn't say don't be, like asking, like, why are you done? Are you afraid, or is your body telling you to stop? And one time Ryan said, I'm afraid. And we're like, okay, you can be afraid. But we said, can you go up 3 more steps? Can you do 3 more? And he goes, maybe. And we're like, why don't you try? And just push him a little bit like that, right? Like challenge them. One time Stoyanka said, I'm done. And we said, why are you done? And she goes, I'm tired. And we go, can you go 2 more? Can your body handle 2 more? And she goes, maybe, let me try. And she did. Like, that is just cool. It is cool to see your kids listen to their bodies in a situation like that. Like, am I afraid or is my body done? Can I go more? Can I push myself? Because our bodies are so much more capable than we give them credit for so many times. And that was just so cool to see our kids say that they reached a limit and then someone challenged them. Like, it could have been one of their siblings. It could have been one of us, to just shout out a challenge. Can you do 2 more? Can you do 3 more? Can you touch that leaf? Like, can you do this? And then them go, you know what, let me try. And for them to admit that they hit a wall and go, no, I'm going over that wall. Like that happened before our eyes with every single person. And that was so cool. And I don't think we would have had that experience with ziplining, because it's just a different experience, and that's fine. I'm not saying don't come ziplining in Costa Rica. Do the ziplining, okay? I'm not saying don't. I'm saying this is a very different experience, and one I am so incredibly grateful that we had the opportunity to participate in. So if you are in Monteverde, make sure to check out Treetopia and their tree climbing activity. I'm going to have a link in the show notes. And we had a blast, and I am so grateful that we were able to go there and participate in it. And I want to say thank you to you guys, because it's because of you and this podcast that we were able to go and be hosted by them. And I just want to say thank you to Treetopia, and thank you to you for listening to this. I really genuinely appreciate it more than you will ever know. And with that, we're just going to close it out. And as always, I hope you continue to travel joyfully.